Well, hello again there, guys. Brian here, the Three Topics Gamer, and I'm here to share with you another episode of my weekly Q&A, titled People's Questions, or answer a series of questions that have been sent to me over the last week. And this episode will mark probably one of the, or if the last video of 2021 and the last episode of People's Questions for 2021. So hopefully the next day will be the new year and hopefully a new beginning to hopefully another great year on YouTube. For this particular episode, I decided to do something a little bit special, and since it was the last episode of People's Questions for this year, I just figured that I would probably answer just about every single question that was sent to me. Usually there's some questions that I would just answer in the comment section, and some I would answer here, but heck, just to say thank you for all of you guys' support, I decided I'll answer everyone's question. So, before I start answering you guys' questions, like always, if you do happen to enjoy this last episode of the year, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can track me in all my future videos for 2022. So some of these are relatively simple, so please don't feel too bad if my answer is like a little bit vague or a little bit too quick, but heck, that's just how I answer some of these questions. The first question comes from Z Visions, and you want to know most underrated movie. Underrated movie. I don't know, but I guess Batman Forever, I guess. That was like the first piece of Batman property I ever saw. That's kind of what made me a fan, and is like half the reason the color green is my favorite color. Like I would still keep it in my top 5 favorite Batman films of all time, probably a number 5 spot. But yeah, I guess just Batman Forever. Next question comes from Black Shadow Knight. You wanted to know, since you said that you would hope that another company does their own version of Metal Gear Solid, if it ever does happen, would you like to play as Solid Snake again, or do something different would be neat? No. If another company, another developer got their hands on the Metal Gear Solid property, I personally would not want to play as Solid Snake. I think when you do something like that, if someone does do a different Metal Gear, the one thing that I want, the approach I want them to go is, this does not come from the mind of Hideo Kojima. Literally the only thing about it that I would expect them to carry over is for them to have some kind of Metal Gear weapon. But in terms of gameplay style, tone, characters, just do something entirely different. You need to really separate yourself from the Kojima vision, and then just do your own interpretation of what you think. If Kojima's Metal Gear didn't exist at all, how would you do Metal Gear? Like, a clear example is something like Metal Gear Rising. That has elements, but it is so vastly different. There's a lot of craziness, and it has its own unique identity, despite taking place in the same world. That's kind of what I would expect. I just think that using someone like Solid Snake, I think that Solid Snake is too linked to other characters that you fall the trap of, well, if you have to use Solid Snake, you have to use all these other characters, and you kind of have to tell the same kind of story. And that's exactly what I don't want them to do. So they'd be better off just using their different characters, different lore, and just keep a Metal Gear weapon. That way you can at least say that this is a new telling of the Metal Gear story. And you don't even have to call it Metal Gear Solid. You could call it Metal Gear something, just to keep it different. But when I play that game, if it ever does come out, the one thing I don't want to do is feel like something that came from Kojima. That's the number one thing. Next question comes from Alucerna. You want to know, who is the most underrated character? And it can be from any video game. Great. Underrated this, underrated that, underrated character. I don't know, Johnny from Metal Gear, I guess. He just kind of has that his thing is that, he, like, whenever there's an interpretation of Johnny in Metal Gear, he's known for, taking a dump in his pants. And it's really not until the 4th one where he actually kind of gets some character growth and kind of becomes like a pretty cool character by the end. But not a lot of people think about that kind of stuff. So I guess Johnny, from Metal Gear, that's who I'd go with. Next question comes from Shao Decis Gaming, and you want to know, who do you think is a better written character, Voldemort or Darth Vader, and why? I think Darth Vader is a better written character simply because when it comes to Tom Riddle, it just seems like there's not much you could have done with that character. It just seems like because of how he was conceived, he was always going to end up being a bad character. There was, I mean, even someone like Adolf Hitler, if you're someone like me who's actually studied that guy, you could kind of see that if add a few little tweaks to Hitler's backstory and like his direction in life would have gone completely different, and the course of history would have been vastly different. When you look at someone like Tom Riddle, there 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 was almost nothing that could have been done to stop him from becoming the Dark Lord. At least with someone like Vader or Anakin, Anakin's journey could have gone so much different with just a few little changes, and I think that's what makes him so much written. He wasn't necessarily destined to become Darth Vader. There's so many ways that he could have changed as a person, and I think that's what makes Vader as a character more interesting. Is that he didn't have to turn out that way. Voldemort did. There's nothing. If you've read the books, there's nothing anyone could have done that could have changed Tom Riddle's path. The only thing that you could have done is maybe just killed him as an early person, then tried to change it. But I think the fact that Vader could have turned out so differently if a few people had been a little bit more open or bent the rules a little bit or been a little bit more understanding or been much more interested in understanding exactly the kind of the pressure that Anakin had been through in order to live up to this high expectation, then I think those elements alone just make Darth Vader a much more better written character because of how different he could have been. So that's why I think Vader is definitely a much more better written character than Tom Riddle. Next question comes from simply, I swear, I will never, ever, ever get used to this. Comes from Tim. Just Tim. And Tim wanted to know, which would you say is better at prep, Batman or Solid Snake? Definitely Batman, because he goes into any situation with the right gear. Better Solid Snake doesn't. He goes in with the least amount of equipment and usually has to capture his own resources. And therefore Batman is always more prepared. Like whenever he gets a call, he kind of knows who he's dealing with, and then he can prep for that. Solid Snake doesn't do that. He just has his skills, and then he uses his skills to make best of the situation as best he can, using the resources that he himself can gather. Batman has his own resources, therefore he's always going to be better at preparation than Solid Snake. I mean, if you want to talk about who's better at adapting to the situation, I say they both can do that because that's kind of what Solid Snake has to do in order to survive. I mean, I find it highly unlikely that Solid Snake would have survived half of the missions if he was just using the standard equipment that he brought with him. But yeah, definitely Batman would probably be better at preparation than Solid Snake. Next question comes from JDS4696. Dang, I haven't seen you in a while here. And you want to know, do I believe that Solid Snake really died from Fox Die virus after Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots? Yes, I do believe he was dead. I think there was even some file that you could read in Metal Gear Rising that kind of confirmed that Snake had passed away. I think there's something like you have his bandana that was given to you, and because of how important that bandana is, I just don't think Solid Snake would have given that to just anybody unless it was someone that was a good friend to him that he would want them to hang on to it after he had passed away. But yeah, I think definitely by Metal Gear Rising, he eventually would have died, and I think Solid Snake wouldn't have had any problem with that. I mean, that's kind of what Big Boss wanted him to do. I mean, he even said that, don't waste whatever life you have left fighting. You should just live not as a snake, but as a man. And I think that Solid Snake would have definitely taken that to heart, and he would have retired, and he would have just happily wanted to just live what life he had, live in peace. So yes, I do think that by Metal Gear Rising, Solid Snake definitely would have passed away by then. And I think I have no problem with that. Next question comes from the Batman of Neo-Gotham. You want to know, when it comes to games like Dark Souls and Bloodborne, what is it about them that despite their grueling difficulties, they manage to become highly praised products amongst video game fans? I have absolutely no idea. because I've never played a Dark Souls game, and I think I played Bloodborne for like an hour. And then I stopped playing and I realized this game just wasn't for me. So I can't speak as for why it's popular because I'm not a fan of those games. So you're going to have to ask someone who is a fan of those games and maybe they could tell you. Next question comes from CHS Celebrity. You want to know if stranded on an island for 1 year and you could only pick one video game character to help survive, who would you pick? Okay, well, you're saying, okay, what's keeping me on this island? Because you're saying I'm stranded, but I can pick one video game character. Okay, if that would be the case, I would pick Sonic the Hedgehog and then just ask him to use one of his magic rings to get me the heck off of there. If you had clarified that, oh no, you're stranded on there and you can't leave, like, I don't know, like there's a bomb around your neck, Brian. So if you leave the island, it detonates. That way you're stuck there. Then that changes things. But yeah, if I'm isolated, but I can pick one character to help me survive, then I would just pick a character like Sonic or someone who could teleport to get me off that island and go home. So, I mean, as far as I'm saying, nothing is stopping me from leaving. So, and last question of the episode and of the year comes from Aaren Whitaker. And he wanted to know, in my opinion, which Grand Theft Auto game do I think is the best? I don't really know because I'm not really a fan of Grand Theft Auto. I mean, I've played a little bit of Vice City. I've played San Andreas. I didn't play 4. I played a little. I played and reviewed 5. I think they're good games, but I personally wouldn't say I'm a fan. Like, I played through those games like once and then just didn't think about it and didn't want to feel like going back to them. So I can't really say which one I think is the best one because it's been so. I know I've played some of these games, but I don't really remember what my overall experience playing them was because it's just been so long. Like, I even looked back at my review of Grand Theft Auto 5, and that was 8 years ago. So the fact that I only played the game once, reviewed it, returned it, and then just never went back to it, I have no idea what my experience for that game would have been. So I can't really say which game is the best because I don't really remember what my overall experience with that game was because it's just been so long, and I don't really consider myself like a big fan of that franchise. So that about does it for this episode of People's Questions. I hope you guys enjoyed this, I think, probably extended and last episode of the year. If you guys have any more questions you would like me to answer in next week's episode, which will mark the first episode of next year, be sure to type them in the comments down below. But make sure you get them into me roughly before next Wednesday, around noon, before I start filming the next episode. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you in the new year.